because those pre-thinking played a very critical role. See, what happens whenever we see a usual, any education video on the YouTube, what happens? Somehow their explanation of the CR is biased by the knowing the end answer. What
Correct.
what happened differently on the GMAT platform was the unbiased explanation. Without knowing the answer, the pre-thinking help us in thinking in the right direction.
Correct.
One thing I would like to mention, I was regretting that because of the admission timeline pressure, I had to, you know, um, be part of the e-GMAT curriculum only for the 15 days. But I was surprising why I didn't get this platform earlier, why someone didn't recommend me earlier. Because, you know, I think I could have improved much more if I had some additional time. So, because why I'm saying this, because the course is so supremely structured, you can track your entire performance. And as I mentioned earlier, also, it's not a plain vanilla video where you have to watch a 70 hours, 80 hours of content. You have to mandatorily get engaged into each and every section.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another debrief session with me. Today, I am excited to have Jinendra alongside, who's here with a fantastic 665. And what makes his journey stand out is that he went from a 585 to a 665 within a span of 15 days. You heard it right. 80-point improvement in just 2 weeks is what Jinendra achieved. And to just give you more details about his overall improvement and section-wise improvement, so Jinendra started his quant at a Q79, which he improved by 7 massive points to a Q86. His verbal improved by 3 points from a V79 to a V82, and his data insights improved from a DI79 to a DI81. What pleases me about Jinendra is his dedication in those last 15 days, the sprint where he put in his all, which is why he's sitting here with me. And what pleases me even more is his willingness to be here and share his journey and story for all you GMAT aspirants who are looking for some inspiration and trying to understand, is it really possible to do this in 15 days? Jinendra is your answer. So Jinendra, thank you so much for joining in. How are you? Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, Dhruv, for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you again.
So Jinendra, 15 days, 80-point improvement. On the first day of those 15 days, did it ever cross your mind that this was possible? Or did you still have those self-doubts?
No, I mean, I was pretty much in self-doubt because, what happened surprisingly, I was scoring decent around this in the mock test of official mock test. But when I took my first, GMAT examination, when I didn't realize, but when there was some difficult question which I faced, and, I got stumped up by those questions, and I scored only 585 in the first test. And because I was already preparing for the CAT examination, so I gave my examination in November, and then I was left with only 1.5 month to apply for few of the colleges, which is the deadline coming in the January. So there was somehow time pressure, and I gave my first examination, and when the score was 585, I was pretty much shocked, and I wasn't clear that how I will, what I'll do differently in the next 15 days so that I can have that score, which will make me eligible to apply in my desired school.
Correct. Correct. So that is how then you got enrolled with e-GMAT. Understood.
Right.
All right. So let's quickly dive into your journey, Jinendra. Right?
Yeah.
Let's start with the hero of your score, that is quant. Okay. You are a chartered accountant by profession, if I'm not wrong. Right?
Right.
And you play with numbers, I believe, all the time in your life, right? But because you were starting at a Q79, I'm sure there must be, again, you mentioned that you were really shocked to see that kind of a score on the first attempt. So to just give everybody some idea, Jinendra did not really go through the entire e-GMAT course. He was focusing majorly on solving as many questions as he can from the portal and learn from those questions and those solutions and find patterns where he was going wrong, and that is how he improved by 7 points. Right. So let's understand from Jinendra. Jinendra, what exactly was your thought process when you were solving those questions? What was in those questions that led to this massive improvement of 7 points in 15 days?
Yeah, I would say, facing the difficult question was the, main core reason which helped me to boost the score. I mean, I would give an example. For example, the e-GMAT question which I faced was like bouncer. I wasn't ready for the bouncer in my first examination, but in those 15 days, I practiced enough for the bouncer. So, for example, if it comes in the main exam, I doesn't get out and I scored well. So initially, what happened? My score was heavily relying on the quants, but I guess I wasn't ready enough to face the difficult question, and that was the result. Somehow my verbal and DI was pretty average, so I scored 79, 79. But I was largely shocked to see only 79 in the quants, and that somehow made me feel that I need to work on the other areas also, not only relying on the quants. But certainly, I knew that quant is my it can be my strong factor, so I need to capitalize it to the most. So in those 15 days, because I knew certain basic concepts of I knew the basic concepts, so rather than revisiting those concepts, I practice the tough questions. So for example, in the e-GMAT question bank, there are n number of customization we can do, or whatever the weak area which was there in the analytics. I
Hmm.
selected those areas. I selected medium and hard questions, and I practiced with the timer. So what
Hmm.
helped me in the long 3 4 lines question, that helped me prepare mentally, and that increased my stamina to solve the difficult question, and that helped me really well in the exam. Because honestly speaking, when you see the official guide questions of the GMAT quants or even the mock test, we may not realize the difficulty level as we may face in the exam. So, for example, if on the good day you may feel that it's on the same line, but on the maybe on the bad day, few question, one or even one or two question here and there, it can affect the score very badly. So, practicing
Right.
those tough question helped me to get the score.
Yeah, and a very good analogy of practicing the bouncers and trying not to get hurt. Good analogy. I'm sure a lot of Indians who follow cricket would could connect with this. All right. So Jinendra, how many questions did you answer incorrectly on the test?
It was two question wrong.
So did you start your test with the quant section?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because
Right.
I knew that out of these three sections, quant was my the strongest one. So I knew that I need. I mean, even though there was an article from e-GMAT also from that I we need to start with our strongest section, because what happens otherwise, if we start with our weak area, we will score less on those tests as well. But even in the your strongest area, you won't get a chance to score, the high number. So that's why I
Correct.
started with the quants.
Understood. And that was a very, very good decision as
Yeah.
well. I remember we had gotten on a call as well to really, discuss your
Discuss the
test taking
order.
strategies,
Yeah,
right? And it was, I think, hardly 3 4 days before you had your test,
yeah, exactly.
right? Okay, okay. So what you just mentioned is that the section order does play a huge role, because we keep getting these queries on a support ID that what do you think is the section order? How much is it important and what should be my section order? So I think this answers all these questions. So thank you so
Right.
much for that insight as well. Moving into verbal, right? You improve from a V79 to a V82. Again,
Hmm.
majorly by solving more and more questions from the portal, but you did go through a few modules from
Right.
CRMRC as far as I saw. So just take us through your verbal journey in these 15 days. What were your challenges and what did you do on the portal to tackle those challenges?
Yeah. So, I mean, first, I would like to mention that I completed my study till the CA course from the vernacular medium. So, English was never my upper hand. And before the GMAT preparation, I also prepared for the CAT examination. And in my CAT examination, also, I scored below 70 percentile in the verbal. So, I gave this background just to, make it relatable to those who are not from the English medium and from vernacular medium. And sometimes this section maybe, may drag our desired score. So, what changed in these 15 days, in my CAT preparation as well as GMAT preparation, I solved n number of questions, RC questions and, CR questions. And even though I analyzed what went wrong, what I could have done differently to get the question right, but still the result wasn't improving. in the 15 days, what changed differently? I went through various conceptual file where, I was very, I was very mesmerized to see the structure of the course. It's a supremely structured course where you can select each area by area, and it won't be just a video play that you have to watch it two,
Right.
3, 4 hours of video. You have to go step by step. You first have to understand the concept, the way how the faculty approaches the question, and that helped me really well in investing more in the time. And I remember we had a discussion also in the first week after I enrolled in the program, and you suggested that I need to spend more time and invest more in reading the question. And that, I guess, was a change factor, and that helped me in solving the difficult question in the arts, because I scored,
Correct.
86 in the quant, so I faced verbal section was quite difficult for
More
me.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I saw there was four continuous RC in my actual
Yes.
examination. It was 5, 6 paragraph long questions were also there, but I was able to manage, to complete well within the time, because those pre-thinking played a very critical role. See, what happens whenever we see a usual, any education video on the YouTube, what happens? Somehow their explanation of the CR is biased by the knowing the end answer. what
Correct.
what happened differently on the GMAT platform was the unbiased explanation. Without knowing the answer, the pre-thinking help us in thinking in the right direction. So
Correct.
we can spot on what are the errors, what are the traps in the answer choice.
Hmm. A lot of people I've interviewed, they have explained pre-thinking well. Okay. But your explanation right now gives a very different perspective to
Hmm.
why is pre-thinking more important and better than the other methods. That you're very right, in the way you put it, that without knowing the answer, it helps you create scenarios. So you are very
Right,
unbiased, right?
right.
So very nicely put. I'm really impressed by the way you just explained that, a different perspective, to be honest.
Hmm.
Right. So to just highlight what you mentioned, you come from a vernacular background. People who don't really know what we're trying to say is that for the people who actually are from uh, countries out of India, right, Western countries. So in India, because we have multiple languages across the country, which is why there are multiple languages in which you can do your education, right? So
Right.
Jinendra comes from a non-English background. Since his childhood, he was always learning in one of our regional languages. So for him to start from there and to score a VAT2, he's come a long way, right? And these processes is what he's mentioning helping. So I think double kudos to you on that. Looking at how far you've come from where you started, right? Uh, Before I move on to data insights, I just forgot to show everybody your quant scholarinium stats. Okay. So, like you mentioned, everybody says our quant scholarinium questions are, pretty challenging and they are at par with the, with the official GMAT. But let me show you something. Let's go to quant. Yeah. So now if people look at your hard accuracy in the last 10 questions, your accuracy is phenomenal. 70% hard accuracy translates to a 90 plus percentile ability. And that is exactly what you scored on the test as well, right? Somewhere around
Yeah.
that. So on these questions, when this is your accuracy, you are actually doing really well. This is an indication, right? So congratulations to you on that as well, right? Let's move on to data
You know,
insight.
I
Yeah.
even I was surprised to see the algebra states. It was showing 90%. So
Correct. And you mentioned it was a weakness as well, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, all throughout my test, one thing was very clear that my arithmetic was very good, and algebra I was struggling with. So in these 15 days, I focused largely to the extent of on the algebra, on the medium and hard question, and that really built that stamina to get that accuracy.
Understood, understood. I'm glad that it suddenly clicked me that I can, really show what you were doing on the portal, right?
Yeah,
Okay, let's come to data insights, right? So P81 is again a phenomenal score on data insights because data insights is a very challenging section. right? You already mentioned your challenges with the verbal section,
Right, right,
correct? Data insights also poses similar kind of challenges because the questions are lengthy,
right.
right? But you were anyway tackling those kind of questions on quant, right? And you were tackling those questions on verbal as well while you were practicing on the portal. What was your time management strategy for the test day for the data insight section?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say data insight is a blended mix of the math related and non-math related question. I mean, it's a simple mix of DI and verbal. So my verbal weakness was affecting my data insight score as well. And what happened in my first examination when the MSR question was a verbal related MSR question, I invested a lot of time in that question, and as a result, my last six question went wrong, and that affected score very heavily. And even in the mock test also, sometime even I scored as low as D75 because of the mainly time pressure. Because what happens if your math is good, then by naturally, I mean, though there are some tricks, but data sufficiency and certain math related two-part analysis that can be done. But the verbal part, until unless it gets improved, it affects your verbal related data insight question also. So as soon, I mean, my verbal preparation in those 15 days helped me in the data insight also. With respect to time management, I remember the day when we discussed that, though it's a, usually people don't say that, but we should be ready to leave some question to get, because our end goal is to score as high as possible.
Correct.
Even if we score first 15 question right and get the last five wrong, we won't get that score. So our end goal is get the score. So I was mentally ready that based on the situation analysis, I was ready to leave the MSR question to get to capitalize on my other areas completely.
Right. Let me try and put this in your own analogy, okay? Where in quant you are now hitting bounces for sixes, you realize that the bounces in DI are to be left alone.
Right, right. If it's a good bowler, we have to respect it.
Absolutely. That's what I just thought of, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's okay to leave some balls. It's okay because one ball that you get to hit for a six, you can just make up for all the balls you've left, and that was
Right,
exactly
right.
what you did. So what is important here is that you also let your ego take a backseat.
Exactly.
Usually, it's your ego that makes you get stuck on that question of how can I not solve it?
Right,
And now that I've already spent 3 minutes, let me spend 1 more minute and see. You need to be humble. GMAT makes you humble, right?
right,
So,
right.
so that is exactly what you need to learn, and that I think is a core of data insights that many people fail to understand. So I think this part of your interview, I think, is going to be really eye-opening for many people struggling with time management data insights. Right. Thank you so much for your insights on that as well. All right. Moving to the mock stage, right? Your scores in your mock stage ranged from, I think, a 595 to 605 to a 635.
No,
Right?
triple five is also there.
555 is also there. Correct. So I want to understand when you were scoring these low scores sometimes, how are you picking yourself up? Because you did not have time to pick yourself up. You couldn't give yourself 2 days of time, okay, 2 days of sulking, and now I'll pick myself up. What was the mental conditioning like?
Right. So, I mean, I was, when I first scored, even after spending, I would say, 7 days, 8 days, when I gave my second mock test and it was 575, then I was very shocked that I'm even after, getting myself ready and preparing all those n number of questions, still I was at 575. But then we had a discussion also, and then I realized that my end goal is not to score in this mock test. This mock test is not for high scoring. This is for making me ready for the worst scenarios. So when I say worst scenario, so I would say that we shouldn't refer much on the end result, that what is the score. We should see the process. For example, even after, you would see the day before mock test which I gave, I was scoring only 605. But I took that
Correct.
positively after my second mock test, that I won't see the score, I will see the process. What are the areas where I need improvement, I have improved. So I use that analytics. So what are the questions? So for example, I remember in my first GMAT examination, I spent 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes in third, fourth question. So
Right.
I use mock test analytics to see what are the, at what moment I need to cut the question and move to the next question to complete the paper on time. And it really helped me to build the stamina, because I would say that, and we had a discussion also that attempting a GMAT mock test makes you ready for the on a bad day GMAT exam scenario.
Correct.
So that really helped me in preparing
Right.
that minds.
Correct. Correct. And how close do you think are Sigma X marks to the official GMAT?
I would say, I mean, those are pretty close. Maybe see, algorithm may be slightly, here and there, but I would say that, difficulty level is quite spot on. And I would say it's 110 level as compared to GMAT, and that's what really requires solving a, paper with a level of 80, 90, as compared to the GMAT examination, uh, keeps us blinded. I mean, we don't really see what are the areas where we need improvement, and we
Correct.
get a shock on the exam day. So it's better to,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Right. So we are coming towards the end of the interview, Jinendra. Honestly, I've had a lot of fun to discuss your journey because I'm actually getting to understand a very different perspective to look at every section, every strategy, right? And I've mentioned that before as well. So I'm having a good time, and I hope so are you, right? So now
Yeah,
that we're coming towards the end, what would be your final advice to the people who are looking for inspiration right now, who are maybe demotivated right now, or who have lesser amount of days to achieve their targets or to go and meet the application deadlines?
so I would say, I mean, if you can find something from my journey, I would say, my office days are very, very hectic. You won't believe I have to, my job in the finance is uh, so much demanding that I was barely getting time. So I used to, get whatever time in the, in the early morning, in the late night, on the weekend, I used to compensate that. So I would say, you don't get disappointed and follow a structured process. What happened initially for the, my first examination, for first 3, 4 weeks, I was doing questions randomly. I was selecting any platform and doing the question randomly. What happens, until unless we follow a structured approach, we never realize and we are not able to track our performance on which areas we are doing better, on which areas we need improvement. So, selecting a structured course is very, very helpful, and it help you in, identifying the effective area so that you can get comfortable on that, and identifying the weak area and you can work upon those. So I would say, I mean, follow a structured approach, and if I can do it, you can definitely do it.
All right, that's a good ending and some really nice advice that you've given. So thank
One thing I would like to mention, I was regretting that because of the admission timeline pressure, I had to, you know, um, be part of the e-GMAT curriculum only for the 15 days. But I was surprising why I didn't get this platform earlier, why someone didn't recommend me earlier, because, you know, I think I could have improved much more if I had some additional time. So, because why I'm saying this, because the course is so supremely structured, you can track your entire performance. And as I mentioned earlier, also, it's not a plain vanilla video where you have to watch a 70 hours, 80 hours of content. You have to mandatorily get engaged into each and every section. For example, in critical reasoning, if we are doing weakener question or strengthener question, so we have to see how to the platform help you in identifying the approach of solving each type of question separately. And there are n number of questions which educator help you in explaining how it should be approached. Then you get n number of questions to solve on your own. So I would say that's a very really good approach.
you so much for giving us your time. And on behalf of e-GMAT and myself, I wish you all the best for the next steps. Please keep us posted about our application processes and let us know
Yeah,
if you need any help and you think we can be of any help. So thank
sure
you so
thing.
much.
Thank you so much, Dhruv.